What's good, Melanin Warriors? On the last installment for now of the massacres of the highly melanated people in the U.S., we're going to New York this time, talking about the Civil War Draft Riots. Let's get it, man.
Stand for something, you gon' fall for anything.
Melanin Warriors.
Let's go. M-E-L-A-N-I-N
Warriors.
M-E-L-A-N-I-N
Warriors.
M-E-L-A-N-I-N
Warriors.
M-E-L-A-N-I-N
Melanin Warriors.
Melanin Warriors. I shade all my kings and queens. Melanin Warriors. Either you stand for something or fall for anything.
So in March 1863, the federal draft law added fuel to the fire that was brewing in New York. All male citizens between 20 and 35 and all unmarried men between 35 and 45 years of age were subject to military duty. The federal government entered all eligible men into a lottery. Those who could afford to hire a substitute or pay the government $300 might avoid the enlistment. So basically meaning if you had somebody to take your place in this draft, you wouldn't have to go, and the rich or the well-off people would just pay this $300 so they people wouldn't have to go fight in the Civil War. And highly melanated people, they were actually considered not citizens, not even human beings of the United States. So they were exempted from the draft. Increasing support for the abolitionists and for emancipation led to fear from New York's white pro-slavery supporters of the Democratic Party, mostly the Irish people, y'all. For the time of Lincoln's election in 1860, the Democratic Party had warned New York's Irish and German residents to prepare for the emancipation of melanin people and the resulting labor competition when Southern melanin people would supposedly come to the North. In August 1863, the draft lottery started, following the same pattern as the 1834 anti-abolition riots. Anti-war newspaper editors published stirring attacks on the draft law aimed at inciting the white working class. They criticized the federal government's intrusion into local affairs on behalf of the, excuse my French, nigger wars. Democratic Party leaders raised the threat of a New York overran with Southern melanated people in the aftermath of the Emancipation Proclamation. White workers then compared their value negatively to that of Southern melanin people. That's the word I use. They use slaves, but I refuse to refer to my people as such. So let's just keep going. Anyways, they stated that we, meaning the working class white guys, are sold for $300 whilst they pay $1,000 for Negroes. His word, their words, not mine. In the middle of financial hardship due to the war, they believed that their political leverage and economic status was rapidly declining as the melanated people were appearing to be gaining more power. So on Saturday, July 11, 1863, the first draft lottery of the conscription law was held. For 24 hours, the city remained quiet. But on Monday, July 13, 1863, between 6 and 7 a.m., the 5 days of chaos and bloodshed that was known as the Civil War Draft Riots had begun. The rioters' targets initially included only military and governmental buildings at first because of the draft. Mobs attacked only the people that tried to get in their way of the attacks. But by afternoon of the first day, some of the rioters had turned to attacks on the unsuspecting melanated people in the area. Rioters began attacking black fruit vendors and a 9-year-old boy at the corner of Broadway and Chambers Street before moving to the melanated orphan asylum on 5th Avenue between 43rd and 44th Streets. 42nd Street was an impressive symbol of white charity toward the highly melanated people, and they called it the Black Upward Mobility, whatever that means. So at 4 p.m., on July 13, 233 children were quietly seated in their schoolrooms, playing in the nursery, or reclining on a sickbed in the hospital when a savage mob consisted of several thousand men, women, and children armed with clubs, bricks, bats, and everything like that came to the institution. The crowd began to set bedding, clothing, food, and other transportable articles on fire and set fire to the entire building. A gentleman by the name of John Decker, the chief engineer of the fire department, he was there, but his firefighters were unable to save the building. The destruction took 20 minutes. The superintendent and matron of the asylum assembled all of the children and led them out to 44th Street And thankfully, guys, the mob refrained from assaulting the children. And I know a lot of these cases and a lot of these incidents that I've covered so far, the young melanated kids they weren't so lucky, but thankfully they were this time. So the mob did not just attack the melanin community during this act of hatred and aggression, but also to the white people that supported the black community, like Abby Hooper Gibbons, a prison reformer, and Ann Dickerson and Ann Martin, who were actually married to highly melanated men. They were also attacked during this riot. Irish mob then attacked 200 melanated people who were working on the docks, while other rioters went into the streets in search of all melanin porters, cartmen, and laborers that they could find. So they were just going through looking for anybody who were stealing their jobs or whatnot. And, their violence, the brutality and savageness of these people back then was just ridiculous, man. But they were eventually routed by the police. They even attempted to remove all evidence of highly melanated and interracial social life from areas near the docks. White dock workers attacked and destroyed brothels, dance halls, boarding houses, and tenements that catered to highly melanated people. Mobs stripped the clothing off of white owners of these businesses, shaming them in public for, supporting the highly melanated people. And let me just say this one time, even during these times, there were white people or Caucasian, whatever you want to say, that actually really, truly, from the bottom of their heart, supported the melanated people. And, really cared for their plight in the United States, man. So shout out to the ancestors of those people who are still out here getting it today, standing side by side with us. So black men and black women were attacked, but the rioters singled out the men for special violence, hanging and burning every melanin man they could get their hands on. The military was not able to stop the violence until the second day. And at that time, it was estimated that 1,200 of the deaths were highly melanated longshoresmen. So afterwards, many melanin people actually moved to Manhattan for good and relocated to Brooklyn. The melanin population dropped to 11,000 by 1865 in Manhattan. Wow. I mean, they went where they were safe at, man. And, just like every other massacre or riot that we've covered, the highly melanated people remain strong and constantly thriving in the United States, regardless of the hate of their skin color or any other kind of segregation that we have suffered. And, eventually I'll go into Jim Crow and everything like that. But honestly, man, I felt like I needed to take a mental break from doing these right now because it's starting to sit real heavy on me. So like I said, this is gonna be the last one of the massacres of the highly melanated people. Y'all come join me next week. We're gonna jump into the Orishas. If you don't know who the Orishas were or are, then you're gonna find out then. But until then, peace and blessings, my people. Ashe.
Don't stand for something, you gonna fall for anything. Melanin warriors. Let's go. M-E-L-A-N-I-N. Warriors. M-E-L-A-N-I-N. Warriors. M-E-L-A-N-I-N. Warriors. M-E-L-A-N-I-N. Melanin warriors. Melanin warriors. I shade all my kings and queens. Melanin warriors. Either you stand for something or fall for anything.